Welcome to The Myth of Motherhood, a podcast by, for, and about moms and those who love them. I don't believe in TMI, and this is a 100% judgment-free zone because there is no one right way to be a mother. There is only your right way. I'm your host, Alyssa Alter, a Brooklyn-based mom, women's health expert, and motherhood advocate. Curious to learn more about what I do and why I do it? Visit alyssa-alter.com. All right, let's get this myth-busting party started.
Welcome back. Now, I don't know about you, but I love the 5 love languages. I don't know if you read the book. I don't know if you took the quiz. I don't know if you've ever even heard of it. But it's sort of like we all feel loved and show love in like these 5 main ways, but we lead with 1 or 2. So like my love languages are words of affirmation and acts of service. So like the number 1 way to show me love is tell me things. Tell me, communicate with me, give me compliments, give me feedback, positive feedback, negative feedback. It's shocking, right? I'm such a talker. And the main way that I will show love to someone is through words, how much I appreciate things, calling things out, having deep, intimate conversations. But like Jeremy's love language, like words of affirmation are like his last one. Like number 1 is acts of service. So like one of the most loving things I can do for him is like take out the trash, clean up something, pick up something he really likes, doing things for him really feels like love. And reading this book, when I read it, it was so eye-opening, not just in romantic relationships, but like friendships and with my parents, like all these different relationships, just like how we're giving and receiving love and how sometimes things get lost in communication simply because I'm giving words of affirmation, but this person doesn't give a fuck about words of affirmation. They want a gift. They want me to like see something little that makes me think of them and then give them that tangible token that I was thinking about them and that I care about them, right? So it was really eye-opening for me. And something that today's guest, Amber Trueblood, who's awesome, has written another book. That's right. She's written multiple books. She's written another book called The Unflustered Mom, which is like the 5 love languages, but about our anxiety. So it's almost like what's your anxiety language? What's your the leading ways that your anxiety manifests? And doing this as a way to learn about ourselves, to learn about each other's like anxiety manifesting, so that we can translate what that anxiety is trying to tell us, so that we can like mitigate conflict, mitigate anxiety, mitigate things spiraling and snowballing out of control. Because as she points out, while these types of anxiety, they have like sort of, negative impacts, on the flip side are also things about the way that your anxiety manifests that help you flourish in the world, right? Like something that I do is like when I get anxious about something, I like go. I go into like hyper overdrive. I overproduce. I overdo it. And that also makes me like highly productive. And like I can pump out content and material and stuff and give, which is like also my superpower. But also I have to be on top of that because I will burn out and fall apart, which also reminds me that I want to remind you that I have been working on this for myself, which is why there will be a little bit of a pause in the podcast. I'm going to take a little bit of a break for this summer because I'm going to have had another baby and take a break from that, that way that my anxiety manifests and that superpower of mine. And take a little bit of a break and just be in the vortex, be in the belly of the whale, be in this moment of my life. And I'll obviously be journaling a ton and still creating because this is who I am, but without the pressure of having to meet a deadline, anything. And I'm nervous about it, but I'm also really excited about it because it's in those moments that I find like so much happens. And so I do invite you, if you want to stay in touch during my sort of summer hiatus, which I don't know exactly how long it'll be. Like, I don't have like, the show will be back September 1st, and it'll stop on this date. But I'm going to take a break for the summer. And if you want to be the first to know when we're coming back and also hear from me a little bit in between and what's going on and things, that I'm thinking about, that I'm learning, that I'm sharing, that I'm implementing, all of that stuff, I invite you to subscribe to my blog, to my email newsletter. I host that all through Substack. The link is in the show notes. Visit my website. I have some free downloads that'll get you subscribed so that you can be the first to know what's going on and when we're coming back. And I want to, again, as always, thank you for choosing to share your precious time here with me and listening to the show, supporting me in my work, sharing episodes or the show in general with friends, following and subscribing. If you haven't left a review yet, that's a great way to support the show and encourage other people to listen and get a sense of the method behind the madness over here. And I also really want to thank you for clicking play today to listen to this conversation, because like I said to Amber, I don't know that we're ready for what a huge impact this can be. When the 5 love languages came out, that became like a huge hit. And listen, maybe that had to do with like their PR person, but I also think it had so much to do with the content and the way that this contextualizes something we know and sense in a way that we can really understand and implement and learn about ourselves and each other and actually be closer and really understand each other. And I think that being able to translate and understand the way our anxiety shows up, when and why, how, and what the superpower of that is, and the kryptonite, and in the people that we love and that we relate to, is such an exciting way to just live deeper. I can't wait to hear what you have about the episode. If you haven't ordered the book, the link is in the show notes. To learn more about Amber and her work and her 4 sons, all of that is in the show notes. And as always, I've got your back, I've got your front, and I've got your undercarriage. Okay, Amber, what is something that you put pressure on yourself to do perfectly or right?
Okay, so I think the answer would be different when I was a lot younger, obviously, than now, right? So
Okay.
Right now, it's pressure to, I would say, when it comes to parenting decisions, probably most of the time, because I think I'm doing a pretty good job. It's one of the things that's very important to me. And so far, so good, right? Like, I feel like I'm doing the right things. I'm writing books about, parenting. So there's a lot of pressure now to not be that person that talks about like, oh, my marriage is perfect. And then 5 months later, you see like divorce, So I'm like, okay, if I'm writing this, like my 3rd book is going to be primarily about parenting. And I'm like, man, I better make sure I have my shit together. Holy mackerel. Not that I write like, oh, I know what's best and this is the only way to do it. I don't write like that anyway. But there's that underlying expectation of crap. Like, if I'm going to speak about this from an expert perspective and give myself any like sort of authoritative position, I better know what the hell I'm doing.
100%. And I totally relate to that, where it's also like, if I'm the expert in this, like, it doesn't mean I'm invincible to experiencing this also. Like, really what that is, it's not, being the expert doesn't mean you have to do it perfectly all the time or you never have a hard time. It's just, you got to walk the walk.
Right. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's a great example of this. I'm thinking of like these mathematical geniuses, right? Who like always know the right answer, but they can't explain it to people because they don't get there the same way. They just like magically know the answer, and they couldn't explain it to me. They wouldn't be able to teach it to me. So maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the best experts are the ones that really do continue to have learned a lot, but continue to struggle with it. And maybe that makes us better teachers.
I was just going to say that's the distinction between what makes someone who's a teacher. I went into college with the intention of being a double major of dance and math.
Okay.
I love math. I've always loved math. And I took calculus and was like, well, I can't do this. And part of it was that I was not meant to be a math major or that was not whatever. And my professor was brilliant, couldn't answer my questions. Like they were too simple. They were too, he's so smart. That it couldn't, so it was like also just not a match there versus, then there are other people that are maybe equally brilliant or not as brilliant, but they can get people to understand the limit does not exist. I don't know. That was like my big takeaway. Anyway, that just made me think of that. But there's a distinction between, not everyone who's good at something is a teacher of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. And so if we can accept that from the beginning, that actually this might make me, that what's more important is that I can teach it in a way that allows people to feel safe and heard and relatable and enough so that they can actually implement and integrate the strategies or the teachings that I'm sharing and make their life better, period.
Yeah. And with parenting, especially that relatability of like, you struggled with this too. It's not like you were faced with it and just like knew what to do. You went through it and are now also sharing that because we're so conditioned to also hide that.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're not supposed to admit like, oh, I'm having a hard time.
And it goes both ways. I think that as women, especially, that whole kind of thing where we, people can't take compliments and we kind of have this self-deprecating way about us as a way to appear humble, right? Is to not appear overconfident or like an asshole or whatever. And instead we can really, we learn, right, to say, oh, thank you. Instead of, oh, you should have seen me yesterday, right? Or, oh, this was only $20, or something like that. So we're I think as a society, we're becoming more conscious of that. But parenting is the same way. Like I spent many years very purposefully parenting a certain way and utilizing self-care strategies for myself so that it helped me become the parent I wanted to be. And I found when my kids were older, I'd get all these compliments and I would kind of say, oh, thanks, like they're good kids, or something like that. And I stopped myself. I said, this did not happen magically. This is not luck. Like this was a lot of work. So I will now say like, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it. So I'll try to encourage like, this is not like if you don't happen to magically have a kid like this, you just give up. This is like, there are some things you could do. Not saying that all kids are the same or all kids will respond the same way at all. But you know your kid best, and there are things you can probably do that might help.
Yeah, and something that you said in there, I think is really important to like pull out is like also that you were really intentional about the way you were taking care of yourself so that you could parent your kids. And I see that so much, in people that I work with, but also with I have a 3.5-year-old. Like he is, if I'm stressed, if I'm anxious, if I'm preoccupied with something else, so then I'm shorter with him.
Right.
I mean, we're bound to have a terrible time, right? But when I can regulate myself and manage my shit, we have a great time.
Yeah. Well, and Alyssa, honestly, like my goal, like the whole reason my first 2 books were all about, moms and self-care and emotional, what to do when you feel emotionally overwhelmed or anxious, and, what that looks like. How do we be kind to ourselves about it? How do we shift our mindset? But also, like, what realistically can you do? What are, like, simple, easy, practical, implementable, like, realistic? Because I could share a million things. Like, I always say, it's like somebody could give me the most amazing recipe for, like, lasagna. They could buy all the ingredients. The ingredients could be on my kitchen counter. I'm not going to make it. I'm just, I don't care about it that much. Like, but you know what I'm saying? But if I cared about it and I had the tools, like, and it was aligned with something that was important to me, then great. So I don't want to just spout off a bunch of amazing strategies that you're going to be like, oh, that was so interesting. And then you go back to your life and you're overwhelmed and you're resentful and you're, aggravated and you're, yelling a little bit more than you want to be yelling, and you're feeling exhausted and spent at the end of the day. And at the same time wondering, what did I even accomplish? What even happened today? I don't even remember. Like, I just was showing up for everybody else around me all day and not meeting my own needs. So my first 2 books are all about the parents and emotional self-care, because I think you really can't show up in your life, and it doesn't even have to be just as a parent, but as a business owner, as an employee, as a caretaker of whomever, the planet. You can't show up in the way you want if you're not really tuned in and taking care of yourself. And this doesn't mean like going for massages and pedicures. Like, it really means like deep self-care.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because we're sold a lot of what self-care is, and it's, bath bombs. And I have a podcast episode titled, like, there is no bath bomb for anxiety, talking about when I finally, like, after having my son, was like, oh, I need to go on medication. Like, I'm doing all the bath bombs, the whatever, and I'm doing the journaling and the meditation and therapy, and I need more support than that. Right. And then, and so you talk about something that I really just I can't wait to hear this. The 5 types of, is it 5? 5 types of anxiety? Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, go. Tell me.
Here we go.
Teach me everything.
Okay. So the framework is set up in a way that, like, I just want to start with the purpose of this point. Like, why even look at 5 different types of anxiety? How's that going to help me? I don't get it. What the heck? Don't you either have it or not? You have it bad, you have it mild. Like, what? I don't get it. Right? And it makes sense, because that's how we've been talking about anxiety. But we're learning so much, right? Until recently, nobody talked about postpartum anxiety. And now that's like a thing people are talking about.
We know that's a thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is hopefully going to be a novel way of really understanding anxiety in a way that's most helpful to people, where you can actually make movement in a positive direction. And so the purpose of this is, though, that because everybody's anxiety, for the most part, stems from a slightly different trigger, slightly different types of triggers. What might cause you to be very anxious might be very different from your sister-in-law or your neighbor or your best friend or your partner, right? And so you're like, why are you anxious about this? Like, this is good news. And he might be like, why are you anxious about that? Like, everything's fine. They're totally safe. I don't understand. So
are you in my house listening to me and my husband? We talk about this all the time. I'm like, your anxiety is so weird. And he's like, yours makes no sense.
Okay.
Like,
so perfect. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So I want to know who you see yourself as and what you think your partner is. So,
okay.
And the purpose is that so that you have a little bit more self-awareness. You're able to communicate your needs more effectively by understanding your anxiety style and how that might differ from the people around you. And also, it's, the flip side of your anxiety style is your Flourish type. It also has created these certain traits, these characteristics in you that are amazing, that serve you, right? They're skills that you've learned because of your particular anxiety style. That, like, let's stop and take a minute to celebrate those and acknowledge those, because not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody has those qualities. So let's celebrate where this is serving you. And then let's look at maybe where it's not serving you in your life. Maybe financially, maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe it's your communication with your partner. You're bickering a lot. Let's look at those areas and say, okay, what are the strategies that are going to work for your anxiety style that may not work for anybody else's? Because sometimes there's the opposite. So I'm going to tell you the 5. So we have lover, fighter, executive, visionary, and dynamo. And these
lover,
are based...
fighter, executive,
Yes.
visionary,
and dynamo.
and dynamo.
Yes.
I already
I
love this.
Okay. So I'll go through each one, but I want you to pick which one you want me to go with next. And I'll tell you kind of like, the triggers, the common factors. There's superhero traits for each one. There's also kind of an overall life lesson that's kind of the underlying current of what you're looking to achieve in this life, what helps you feel most safe, most enough, most loved, most cared for in your world. And then maybe some tricks on like how to communicate and connect with people of of different anxiety styles. And also what happens in a relationship when you have 2 of the same, because you'd think, oh, that'd be great. And it is sometimes. And other times, y'all both are over here just so in tune with this and maybe riling each other up. Maybe you don't have that balance.
Right.
And then meanwhile, you're missing out on something else over here that you both really value, but it's not in your default mode to attend to. So it kind of, doesn't happen. So we can kind of touch on all of that. Sound good?
I am so excited.
Okay.
So excited. Okay.
Which one would you like to begin with?
Executive.
Okay. All right. I love it. So people with an executive anxiety style are most driven to feel safe. It's about safety, both emotionally and physically. But in this day and age, for most of the people living here, it's going to come down to most emotional safety. Chances are you're physically safe in this moment. Not everybody on the planet are. And so people who are executives also will be very tuned into that. Who else doesn't have safety? Because that's first and foremost, both for them, their family, and also just the planet. That's what they're tuned into. And so a way that is very common for executives to how that shows up in their life is they're very good organizers, planners. They're in their head. They're thinking ahead. They are imagining each case scenario so that they feel prepared, right? And when they feel prepared, they feel safe, right? And they feel loved and cared for. And that's also how they will show love and care for other people, right? To manage things, control things. And lots of times this style will come from a childhood where they didn't feel that control, right? Where there wasn't that sense of safety or knowing what was going on. And so they dealt with it by becoming just these super amazing people in the world of organizing, creating, planning, scheduling, being super dependable. These are people that where trust and dependability are like the highest qualities, right? They both have those qualities in and of themselves and really respect and look for those qualities in others. And that would be the scariest thing, is to have a partner you can't trust or you can't depend on, right? Or who's going to come home. Now, a trigger might be for an executive. So say somebody comes home, your partner comes home and says, oh my gosh, like my boss just gave us his beach house for the weekend. Like, let's go, let's start packing. Like, this is amazing. The house is incredible. You're not going to believe it. Like, and it's fully stocked. Like, we don't even have to worry about anything. The executive is going to be like, hold tight. We have a soccer game tomorrow. We have I have a podcast recording tomorrow morning, and I was like, there's 12 loads of laundry on the couch. Have you not seen that? And it might take them a minute. They might say, there's no way I can go tonight, but give me a minute to cancel some things, make some phone calls, because it's exciting. I get that you're excited about it, and I want to be excited about it, and it sounds amazing, but I need a minute to absorb it, right? I need a minute to change perspectives and my mindset and get excited with you. So knowing that about yourself is going to help you communicate and not have your partner be like, why would you not be excited about this? I don't understand. Like, he normally rents it out. It's like $5,000 for the weekend, you know? And if you know, I'm a planner. This really is jarring for me. It doesn't mean I'm not excited about it. It just means I need a minute to get there and I need to feel safe in how I'm organizing it. So a life lesson for executives is to really check in, because chances are you are safer in this adult life than you felt as a child, right? So where in your life are you still carrying this intense drive when really you are safe already? So how do you feel safe in your life as you are now, right? Without you still will always be a planner. Like, that's just in your nature, and you probably have a lot of fun with it. For instance, I had one of my editors on this book, the Unflustered Mom book. She is an executive, and she said her sister is like an executive on steroids, because you might have kind of one or two. You might be like part lover, part executive. You might be predominantly lover with a little bit of executive, right? So nobody's ever a whole one thing. So she said that it wasn't until she was in her 30s that somebody pointed out to her that it was odd that she always traveled with a first aid kit. And not like traveled like on backpacking trips, but like if she went to the mall, she would have a first aid kit with her at all times in case anybody needed it, in case there was an emergency around her and they needed it. And she was just like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Like, why wouldn't everybody?
Who wouldn't?
The first aid kit. Like, I have
safety first.
I have 4 kids. I don't know that I have a Band-Aid anywhere on me, in my car, in my purse, ever. Maybe when they were little, but I don't. And she said her sister, when it came to like family planning Thanksgiving, created this very detailed spreadsheet with everybody, what they were going to bring, how many servings it was, and what time, on a spreadsheet to send out to the family. And to her, that was very like, why wouldn't you do that? Then
this way we're all on the same page. We know what we're bringing. We can get excited.
So executives take that to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm thinking, not only have you been listening in on me and Jeremy, but you've also been sitting in on my therapy sessions. I was literally just talking yesterday about how the past couple of years have been weird, but I started hosting Thanksgiving for my family, and I would order my turkey in August.
Pardon?
Like,
I'm just kidding. And knowing that about
like,
yourself,
why?
Right.
But I was just like, now I don't have to think about it. I know I'll have the turkey. They'll let me know when I pick it up. It'll be great.
Right.
And the other thing that you said that really struck me was that check-in point as an adult. And this has been like, this is when I was like, she knows Lisa. Lisa's my therapist. That
That's funny.
The way I operate is very much driven by what my circumstances were.
Yeah.
And checking in with like when that happens. And it's been great where it's like, wait, but that's not now.
That's not
That
now.
isn't. I'm so safe now.
Exactly.
It's
and
like
you can
so
make
safe.
different choices and then say, oh, that worked out. I didn't have a detailed plan for that. And we actually had a wonderful time. So in the
I
book,
don't
for
need
each
it the
chapter,
same way that I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So I also I'm big on the strategies then. So once you have the insight, then what? That's fun to understand, but what's the next step? So for each of these, I have both preventative strategies that you can implement, like many times a day, once a day, weekly, and then once a year. And then I have in the moment strategies. And those are also, because time is of the essence for most people, broken down by I have a minute, like literally I have less than 60 seconds, because maybe I have a podcast I'm about to, I just got a cortisol, boost and I'm just super agitated and literally the countdown clock is on and I have to, and I have to do something.
Show
right
up.
now. I have
to show
right
up
now and be present. What do I do? So there's strategies for if you have 1 minute, if you have 10 minutes, if you have 30 minutes. And so just a couple like tests of one of the things that is amazing, not tests, but like strategies for executives is things like having time when it's just open, like I want to say play. So activities that you do that have no purpose, that are more creative in nature, like dance, like you mentioned, dance.
Yeah.
And that are physical. So it could be hula hooping, could be roller skating, could be dancing, could be going and jumping on the trampoline with your kids. Mm-hmm. These are things that can help ground you and help to kind of balance out that overactivity and that planning, doing side of your brain.
Yeah, I'm really laughing because I was very active for a long time in improv comedy and musical improv, which draws from my performance background. But it's also like, as I'm listening to this, I'm like, well, yeah, and part of the reason that I love that is because you can't bring all that other stuff into it. You just have to be here. And I mean, I also I've learned so much from it, but like what purpose does it serve? I mean, I've learned a lot of life lessons that are incredible, but also it's like you don't write it beforehand. There's no, unless someone videos it, like it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's so freeing and it's so important to me, but for someone else, though, like for my husband, that's just his worst nightmare.
Right, exactly. and sometimes your worst nightmare is because you're so uncomfortable doing it, and it really, and the benefits are many. Like, for instance, for dynamos, and I could jump into that if you'd like.
Yeah, yes.
So dynamos their bottom line driver is all about achievement, doing, feeling a sense of accomplishment and acknowledgement. So not only for yourself, but from others, right? And so there's a lot of in your head instead of in your heart or your gut. There's a lot of forward thinking. So like executives, they're thinking of the future instead of maybe being in the present moment a lot. And both are also more kind of in their head than in their gut or heart, like making decisions from like, oh, how it feels instead of like, well, what makes sense, And so that's another differentiating factor for each of these. Some of them are more gut and heart oriented. Mm-hmm. Others are more head oriented. Some are more in the present moment and then the past, and others are more forward thinking. So that's another way that you can, tune into your partner or other important people in your life by saying, okay, I get it. I'm in this moment with you and you're like in La La Land thinking about the future, And so yeah. I get that. And how can we kind of get to the same place in time? So for dynamos, they're all about, doing. You, like I say, you might know you're a dynamo if you have a list, because you definitely will have a to-do list. Almost every dynamo I know. But you will add something to that to-do list that you've already done, just so that you can feel that adrenaline rush, that dopamine high of checking it off the list.
This is also me. Okay.
Yeah, so you might have you might be a combo there.
Yeah.
And so dynamos are, their kind of underlying life lesson is to feel worthy, feel valuable now, regardless of what you accomplish next, right? How do you stop and celebrate the wins that you just did? Oh my gosh, I have 5,000 downloads. How do I get 10? Okay, what's the next step for like getting to 10,000 downloads? Well, I have to do that. Okay, hold up. You just got 5,000 downloads. Let's have a party. Let's tell everybody you know. Let's meditate on that. Let's write it on our gratitude journal. Let's like soak it in, slow down, celebrate what you've already done. You're still going to be a doer. You're not going to ever stop because it's fun and you're good at it. And it's part of what brings you joy in your life. And that's amazing. And how can you slow down a little bit? Connect to the other people in your life. Celebrate your wins a little bit more. And not have it come from feeling a sense of filling a void, but come from just the joy in it.
I can't. I don't even know what to say. I am obsessed with this.
Yeah. So, and there are specific strategies then, and I kind of mentioned a few that are both preventative. So mindfulness practices, anything that kind of gets you into the present moment can be very powerful for dynamos. Also celebrating wins, and really tuning into acknowledging what you've already done before you hop off to the next project.
So we had a little bit of some technical difficulties, which we figured out it's totally fine, but it gave me an opportunity to take your quiz, which everyone should take, flourishquiz.com. I will put that in the show notes. Okay. You described the executive, and I was like, oh my God, that's me. I ordered my turkey in August, right? And then you started describing the dynamo, and I was like, shit, that's me too, right? Okay, but then I took your quiz, and I got the visionary.
Okay, I love it. That's so funny. Okay, so we'll go there then.
My mind is blown. And it's making me, what I'm thinking of is like, so we have these like 5 anxiety types. And the way you're describing them, it's like I read the book, The 5 Love Languages, and that this is like very similar in that we're a combination of all of these things. Like we're all human, but we lead with different things and have different, go-tos. And after reading that book, like you've described in your work in this book, like I found from the 5 love languages, it was really insightful to be able to understand why when I did certain things, for Jeremy, I'm like, why isn't he like basically throwing me a parade for this? Like, why is he not losing his mind? And it's like, oh, because that's not his love language. But when I do these other things that to me, I'm like, whatever. He's like, I can't believe, how did I get so lucky to marry you? And I'm like, really that? But
exactly.
It's
so this
so
works
helpful.
The same way. So this works the same way. If you understand yours and you understand the people that you're trying to deal with, whether that's a coworker, your boss, your mother-in-law, or your partner, or your child, then you can have a little bit more compassion for them, right?
Yes.
And connect with them. So it's all about, for me, using these insights to feel better and then also elicit compassion for yourself and connection with the people who you really care about.
That's what we want.
That's everything. Right. Yeah. I love your face. I love your face.
I'm obsessed with this. I cannot wait to read all of it. Yeah, just dig in more, get more.
And I do have to say that for anybody who pre-orders the book, if they go to my website, I have all of these customized, bonuses. So if you put in, and you can do it for multiple types. So if you want the visionary strategies and the executive strategies, go in, you put executive, you put your email, and then I will email you. I have special guided meditations for each anxiety style. Special mantras, guided mantras, a mantra practice for each one, and then, a bunch of other fun bonuses. But they're, specific to each anxiety style.
You know this, right? You know this because this is your work and you created this. And writing one book, let alone 3, when you commit yourself to that, it's because this is important and it needs to be shared and the people need to know. Yeah. And you already know this, but it's just, this is game changing. Because I also, you were saying, earlier, now we talk about postpartum anxiety. We just talk about mental health more. Since COVID, we had this huge collective experience where we've been under extreme stress for a prolonged period of time, which is not what our bodies were built to do. Short bursts of stress and then chill out. We've had no chill. And now we're having these conversations, and to get to dive in a little bit deeper and really just understand where it's not I'm stressed or I'm not.
Right.
I have anxiety or I don't. There's so much nuance to this, and this is not an opportunity. This is not some sort of failing on all of our part. This is an opportunity for us to understand ourselves, how we operate when we start yelling more or resenting everyone, to be wait, okay, that's a symptom. What is happening? And then being able to be oh, what's really happening is this. And then, you're saying, with all of these different strategies, what to do yearly, what to do when you have 1 minute, you then can actually do something about it and feel better in yourself and with your people and the world. This is
Huge.
I love it. I love you. I do have to say, I want everything to also be easy and simple. So in the book, like I love neuro hacks as well, because there's sometimes where you can't think your way through it. You can't journal your way through it. You're just in it so deeply. And part of you like wants to stay mad or wants to stay resentful, doesn't want to let your partner off the hook. And so sometimes when you're in that mode, you might need a neuro hack where it's sneaking around, that part of your conscious brain, and it's going from the physiological first. So it's calming your nervous system through simple things like chewing gum, right? If your body thinks that you're stopping and eating, it doesn't think that you're being chased by tigers, right? So the blood can return to your I love it. So I think you talk about these things a lot. So there are simple things you can do like that, like have pieces of gum. So I have, I talk a lot about neuro hacks in these strategies as well. And I talk about triggers. So I take you through a little exercise where you know what your triggers are. So it might be like after everybody goes to bed, you dip into the freezer and start just chomping down that Ben & Jerry's. Or maybe you go on overstock.com and you start like ordering stuff for summer that's like 10 months away. Or maybe you, right? Or maybe you go on Facebook and start like angrily replying to people who are ticking you off and you don't think they should say those things. What are your go-to things that aren't normal for you, that are things that you tend to do when you are overly stimulated, when you're overwhelmed, when your anxiety has been triggered, so that you can then notice, oh shoot, I've been doing that. I'm doing the thing. And that's when you go to, and I have people write it out. It's called your emotional emergency support plan. You create this simple EESP. Here are my top 3 10-minute strategies, my top 3, 30-minute strategies, and my top 3 60-second strategies. And then you have it on your phone, you have it printed out in your bathroom. And then you say, oh man, last night I was into that Ben & Jerry's. I ate the whole dang thing. And then I hid it in the trash can because I didn't want anybody to know that I ate it all. And that's indicating to me I need some extra support right now and I deserve it. And my family deserves it. And my coworkers deserve it because they don't deserve to be around somebody when I'm feeling this way. Yeah. So I'm going to go to my plan. All right, I only have 10 minutes this morning. Okay, I picked the one that was put on 3 old school hip hop songs in a row and just dance it out by myself in the bathroom. Okay, I'm going to do it.
Go. Yes. Go. I created something similar, the self-care menu, because we talked about earlier, and I use as an example, I am someone that taking a bath is impactful for me. It helps. Yeah. That belongs on my plan. For other people, they're I'm not sitting in a tub of my own filth and what with my thoughts, that doesn't help, right? So if I just said to you, here's a list, like you were saying, here's a list of the top 3 things to do, they might not apply to you,
right?
So how do we create? Yeah, and you download a template and create your own so that when you're then in those heightened times of stress where, you're saying, I can't then generate the information or come up with what would be the most impactful thing for me to do right now while I'm freaking the fuck out. Yeah. No, you go to your list and you choose because you've past Alyssa chose this for me and she knows me really well. And then you just pick one and do it and then you feel better, which that's the point.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And we deserve that. We deserve that for ourselves.
Definitely. Yeah.
Something you said, which is something else I know you talk a lot about, and I just think it's really important is we have these we have this operating system and it's and when I get on Facebook and I take out my frustration on those strangers and I put them in their place, I literally this morning drove past someone who was standing outside with I've never done this before, but he had a sign about I don't even remember what it says right now exactly. It was so dumb. What about It was anti-abortion, like save the baby's lives, like and about taking away my reproductive rights. So as I drove by, I gave him the finger. Which, like, I've never done that to someone. And the whole time I'm, like, laughing at myself. I'm like, oh, good for you, Alyssa. But also I was like, this feels so fucking good. Like, fuck you, guy. But also, like, what are you doing? Like, I literally was about to drop my son off at school. Like, what's happening? But it felt really good. So, like, I'm angrily on there doing my thing. And it makes me feel good. And what about the fear of then if I don't do that, I don't get my jollies from it.
Right. Yeah. And that is more of a fighter. So I can do visionary next or fighter. What do you want?
Oh my God. Visionary. No, we got to do visionary.
Okay. So visionary are, like in the title, people who are very driven by and focused on their ultimate vision, their ultimate dream, and impact they want to make in the world often. And sometimes they know exactly what it is. And sometimes they don't know, but they feel underneath this, like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. I know I'm supposed to be doing something else. And that can create a lot of frustration because I don't know what it is. I don't have that clarity yet, or, somebody else just did what I flippin' want to do. They're doing it. And that could be very, can ignite some frustration as well, right? So, visionaries tend to, differently from dynamos who are more in their head, visionaries are forward thinking, they're doers, they're action oriented, but they're more from instinct and kind of this gut, like I'm going to make decisions based on, that just doesn't feel right. This feels right. So it's not necessarily about making sense logically. And maybe they don't attend to kind of the details and the steps along the way, as far as like, I want to jump over here, I want to jump over there. And so in business, I would say, you're going to want people around you that say, okay, that is amazing. So first you might want to pick a logo and have a website that works, or whatever, and have people around you so that okay, this is where I shine. This is my genius. And over here is where I could use some support and help, right? So the life lesson for visionaries is, how do I get value, feel valuable as a human, feel like I've done my thing, my purpose, and enjoy the steps along the way. Connect with the people we care about along the way. And those people might not be able to relate to your very, very clear, driven focus about this thing way out in the future, this big, giant thing that seems so unrealistic to them. They want to be connected to you at dinner right now in this moment. And you're like, but don't you understand? And so a lot of my strategies around visionaries are, being attentive to how other people might, what they might value, and giving them that, like what you were mentioning about the 5 love languages, give them what they need. And then they are going to be far more likely to say, fast forward, when you're on your deathbed and you've got your Forbes magazine there that you're on the cover of, right? And, and do you want to also be surrounded by all of these loved ones who have supported you along the way and got to kind of take part in that experience? Or do you want to be like kind of on your own with the magazine and the nurses? Yeah. So a lot of the challenges with visionaries are, really that awareness that not everybody is thinking along the same lines. And that's not bad. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just different. And so let's be as respectful of what's important to them, which might be you getting home on time for dinner and not having your phone there and not be talking about the idea you have to solve homelessness in your community, but just talking about how their day was. What did they do? What brought them joy? What moment happened? And that is one of the strategies I have with visionaries is think back to this last year. What were your most favorite moments? And that's the key word. What was your most favorite moments? And often they were the little moments. Like, remember when we got lost and there was that crazy sunset and then we just like got out of the car and like you dragged me to the beach or you slowed me down for a moment, and it was really lovely. And my husband does this to me all the time. I'll be working on very achievement oriented, and he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, the sun just came out. It's beautiful. Like, everybody get off their computers. Like, we live like 2 miles from the beach. Going to the beach." And I'll be like, "Ugh," in my mind is the last thing I would do was stop what I'm doing. I can't check that off. I mean, it can. So I add it, like, I'll write that on my list. Saw the sunset with my family. Check.
Are you a dynamo?
I am. Hardcore dynamo.
I love that. Yeah. No, and that's, again, it's also such a nice way to spin something that can feel so heavy and negative, like anxiety and stress, into a really positive tool.
Yeah.
Right? All of these things, like, it's not, it doesn't have to be a negative or anything. Like, this is an opportunity for us to learn and move forward with intention and with more space and levity in our lives. Because I mean, life is hard enough. And after the past few years we've had enough heavy. Like, we really, we need more fun. True. And this is like tools to make that happen, and in a way that honors who you are. Because, like you're saying, with each of these, there are superpowers. There are things components of this that help you flourish and be your best self in the world. We're not negating that. We want space for that, and for that to be highlighted and to be even easier.
It's so funny you say that, because in the book, I really didn't want to call it your anxiety style for a long time. And I said, well, it's really also your flourish type. And so I went back and forth with the publisher on, like, how do we, really pull people in by, using that word anxiety that they resonate with and they get and they want help with, but also not demonize it, right? Like you're saying, like, there is a flip side to this. Yes, there's a place in your life where it may not be serving you, but where is it serving you? Because these qualities are also your superpowers. And there's a flourish type that's the same. So it's the same thing. So where this is helping you, it's where you're going to flourish. And where it's not helping you, that's where it's going to create anxiety. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, my God. Okay.
So do we have just one more? Do we have just fighter? Oh, we did lover and fighter.
Lover and fighter.
Okay. So fighters are those people in your life who, or I'll say it this way. You might be a fighter if the loved ones forever in your life have said, why are you even getting involved in that? It has nothing to do with you. So you are somebody who tends to go toward conflict, go toward challenge, go toward, if you see bullying, if you see an injustice, if you see
someone standing on the street with a sign about your body, who does not have your body, you flip them off on the way to daycare.
Just maybe, yeah.
I mean, it felt good. As I said, I've never really done something like that before. Yeah. It was kind of great.
It kind of felt good. So, fighters tend to be, have this beautiful capacity to want to deem themselves a survivor, right? So that's a real sense of pride. Like, I have survived a lot. I can handle a lot. Yeah, give me a challenge, boom, I'll shoot it down. So they kind of thrive in this tumult, in this chaos, in challenge. And that creates a beautiful set of qualities that are amazing, right? Resilience and strength and independence and this kind of, standing up for the underdog. It often comes from a childhood where maybe you had some trauma, maybe you had some chaos, and the people that were in charge of your care didn't step in a way that felt good and felt safe and where you felt protected. So now you play that role for others, and you are really impelled to do that. It's just not in your nature to sit back and say, well, that sucks. I'm going to go make dinner.
Not my circus, not my monkey. Exactly. It's not that person.
So the downside of this is that maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you are already spread so thin that you don't really have the bandwidth to take on yet another challenge. Maybe you've had a string of relationships that are, very, very, very big highs and very, very big lows and a lot of chaos. And you're like, you just want to be in a healthy relationship with somebody who treats you well and is not fighting all the time. Maybe you've had a lot of chaos in your financial life and you're ready just to have consistent income that feels good and that you're not like constantly feast or famine, And so the challenge with a fighter is, how can I bring that like feeling of being compelled to go toward the chaos into a conscious decision, right? So I'm in charge of, do I want to have continuous conflict in my financial life? No, I'm done. Okay. So how do I take actions that correspond with that? Same thing with my personal life. And then, because you're still going to always want that a little bit, where can I make a decision like, okay, maybe I want to, take a trip to a place where nobody speaks English and I don't know the language. Like that would be a real adrenaline rush for me. Or maybe I want to start running ultra marathons, or maybe like, where can I add challenge in my life that I'm in charge of, that's not happening to me, but I'm deciding I want this extra challenge? Because part of you will always want that. And I would argue that, triggers for fighters look very different than, say, triggers for lovers. So one of the women I interviewed for my book who's a fighter is a friend of mine. And we had gone to lunch or dinner with some friends and she had not met them before. And they just were like nice and funny and smart. And we had this like great dinner. And on the way home, she said that she was physically like sick to her stomach. It made her really uncomfortable because it was just like this beautiful, nice time. So when things are calm and good, it can be very unsettling for fighters, because what if they let their guard down and the shit hits the fan? They're not prepared. They're not prepared. And the scariest thing is not being prepared. And when things are good, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know how long this is going to last. This is scary. This does not feel safe. I feel safer knowing what I'm up against. I'm in the fight. I can do this. I'm used to this, So it's about consciously saying, in what areas of my life am I done fighting? Am I exhausted from being the fighter, the protector, the survivor, and ready to get comfortable slowly? It takes time. Get comfortable in the calm. Get comfortable in the beauty. Get comfortable in being treated well, right? How do I get used to that?
And I love that, and exploring the other ways in your life that you can
still get
that adrenaline rush, get that challenge, get that conflict, and flourish in that place, but in a way that ultimately is fueling your whole life rather than depleting you and leaving you so exhausted that you don't really get to enjoy anything.
Right.
And then also leave some space for you to like enjoy a calm moment.
Yeah.
Enjoy a lovely dinner where everyone just has a nice time.
And I think you'll appreciate this, Alyssa, like physiologically, I liken it to, like, say you grew up in some super high altitude town, right? So your body is accustomed to very low levels of oxygen, right?
Yeah.
And so your blood is working, your organs, everything's working overtime, but that's what you're accustomed to. And then you come down and you live at sea level later in your life, and it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable because it's too easy on your body. And so, and this is kind of graphic, it sounds terrible. So you kind of, metaphorically, like, choke yourself. You hold your breath a little bit because you're not.
So it feels
used
familiar.
To this. So it feels familiar. So how do you stop holding your breath so that you can really, breathe and feel safe and be okay at sea level?
That is such a good analogy.
Thank you.
It really is. And it's like, it's a little dark.
It's a little dark, I know.
But that's what makes it. No, but that's like, you get it. And it's like, it sort of needs to be, because in a lot of ways a lot of us are doing that.
in a variety of ways. Okay, so now tell me about the lover.
Okay, so lovers are all about, as you might guess, their connection, their relationships with the people they care about in their life. And needing to feel, striving to feel, driven to feel loved, feel wanted, feel accepted, and feel belonging. And everybody has that, right? Like everybody has all of these to a degree. Where lovers take it to the next level is, so say you see on Facebook, some of your friends just got together for dinner last week, like right by your house. And you see pictures and you're like, what the heck? And now an average, normal, common reaction would be, well, that sucks. Like, what, did I miss the text? Like, I'm bummed about that. Like, that's, you know, I have my hurt feelings. You know, I would have liked to go. Did they think I was out of town or what the heck? Lovers will tend to take it to the next level. Like, Alyssa went to dinner with Rachel and Kristen and didn't invite me. Like, is she mad at me? I know she interviewed me. Like, maybe she didn't like the interview, or she thinks like I messed up her podcast because I had that big problem with my sound in the middle of it. And like, she probably just thinks I'm so unprofessional and she was telling them all about me. Like, then you're just spiraling, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going off in all these crazy directions with really no basis in reality, because that's my biggest fear, is that Alyssa doesn't want to hang out with me anymore. She thinks I was stupid and she doesn't like my book idea. You know, like whatever it is. But that's where your brain goes. And I give that example to show like you've given no indication of that. In fact, quite the opposite. But it doesn't matter. This is where my tender spot is. And that's where my brain goes first. Yeah. So for instance, if I'm a lover and I'm married to an executive, right? And so say you're my partner, you're at work, and you know you have something big coming up the next day, and you need a couple more hours to work, but you told me you were going to be home at 5, and you, instead of just texting me, hey, I'm going to be late, I'll get home as soon as I can, my brain will go to, she doesn't want to come home. She's just making that up because she is irritated with me, or she doesn't want to spend time with me, or wants to go out with friends and doesn't want to tell me the truth. And that's where my brain is going. Yeah. So as a lover, what I would say to you is, you know what would be so helpful is just give me like 1 or 2 extra sentences, like, hey, I have to edit 3 podcasts because we're going on vacation next week and I want to get this done so I'm not thinking about it anymore. And it's probably going to take me another 2 hours. But how about when I get home, we order some Indian food and we just like turn on Ted Lasso and watch that when I get home. So it's 2 things you're doing. Is you're explaining in a little bit more detail, you're giving a little bit more context, and you are planning something that reconnects us later. So I know I get your time and attention later.
Amber, are you like ready for how big this is?
So no, because I'm a dynamo. And I just think
check.
It's not enough.
Moving on.
It's not enough. I literally am halfway through I'm almost submitting the proposal for my next book. And yes, taking a moment to slow down and say, this was a really good idea. This is going to help a lot of people. I wanted to reach a lot of people is not a simple thing for me.
Thank you so much for sharing your precious time with me. I am so happy that you're here. I hope this episode resonated with you and maybe even inspired some insight into the myth of motherhood and how that shows up for you in your life. If you found yourself nodding your head along with this episode thinking, oh my God, did Alyssa read my journal? Or I feel so seen. Or even I'll have what she's having. You can. Check out our incredible community over in the private Facebook group Moms Club and visit me at alyssa-alter.com to download your free guide to the 20 things no one tells you about pregnancy and postpartum. Remember, there is no one right way to be a mother. There is only your right way. See you next week.